For many of us in our 40s, 50s, or 60s, this is the final round. Our time is running out fast for us to witness the country we've long hoped for, a nation that works, an advanced economy, a just, dignified, and prosperous population. A system that delivers, where public services are fast and fair, where licenses just take minutes, not months, where classrooms ignite minds, not just fill time, where health or security services quick in response, where roads unlock growth, not gridlock, where small farmers export, policies actually reach people, and government moves with the urgency of its citizens. For us, there is no time left for familiar nonsense like pungutan liar, inefficiency, uncertainty, layered bureaucracy, endless queues, street crimes, normalized corruptions, wasted budgets, or delayed projects. While nation's productivity matters to every cohort and its absence can frustrate all, but to us, it is the last change. It is what determines whether our lifetime of effort matters and will we ever see the country we've imagined to come to life. It is the multiplier that connects individual effort to national progress. Without it, we remain trapped in a cycle of exertion with little advancement. No amount of effort, spending, or reform will deliver the results we need. When productivity is low, progress is slow, and frustration grows. Economic growth headlines can deceive. Indonesia's GDP has reliably grown about 5% annually for years, a pace many nations envy. Yet, this top-line number masks a stagnant truth. Productivity has barely budged. In fact, while GDP grew 5%, labor productivity rose only around 2.5% per year. It's like running on a treadmill, expanding energy but staying in place. GDP rises, but individual workers are generating significantly more value than before. As Nobel economist Paul Krugman famously noted, productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it is almost everything. A country's ability to improve living standards depends almost entirely on raising output per worker. If GDP is rising, such as due to recent commodity boom, while productivity flatlines, the wealth created is an illusion, a mere swelling of inputs without real efficiency gains. Indonesians, we are working as hard as anyone. By some measures, Indonesians worker, yes, you and me, we even put in over 2,000 hours per year on average. That is among the highest working hours in the world, and well above the OECD means of just 1,700 hours. Yet, for all of this hustle, we often feel we're not getting ahead. The reason? Low output for each hour of work. Yes, an Indonesian worker produces on average only about $13 to $15 of output per hour. That is in PPP terms. Compare that to a worker in Malaysia, about $26 per hour, and Singapore, about $74 per hour. So essentially, we're sweating more but accomplishing less. That is the productivity paradox that we can see and feel. The consequences hit home in paychecks and prices. Because productivity is low, businesses face higher unit costs, often resulting in lower wages for workers and pricier goods for consumers to maintain competitiveness. Many Indonesians remain in low-value tasks, small retail, basic farming, and low-end services. Yes, they work long hours to make ends meet or running hard, but each hour's work adds only a sliver to the economy or getting nowhere. So it's running hard, but getting nowhere. Our people are not lazy. They are toiling endlessly. But the tools, the skills, and environments they work in are often not empowering them to multiply their output. This treadmill of long hours and meager gains is unsustainable if we aspire to prosper. Why has this issue escaped the spotlight for so long? There has been a productivity blackout in our public discourse. We obsess over macroeconomic indicators such as GDP, inflation, unemployment, etc. But rarely is productivity growth on the front page news or in a political rallying cry. As a result, a critical driver of prosperity has lurked in the shadows. Few talk about how a nation transforms every minute, rupiah, and energy into tangible progress. They are treated as a technical concept, a jargon term, rather than a kitchen table concerns. And that is dangerous because what isn't measured and discussed often isn't improved. Unity, religiosity, harmony, gotong royong, musyawarah mufakat, kekeluargaan, these are all embedded in civic discourse and cultural rituals. Productivity, though, is not framed as a shared moral aspirations. It is rarely thought as a civic virtue or tied to national pride. It is absent, or perhaps just buried in sub-narratives from the language of Pancasila, religious sermons, and civic educations. The idea that speed, innovations, or efficiency is a form of service to others is absent from everyday ethics. No campaign calls for a more productive citizenry or state. There is no shared productivity pact. Output per worker is invincible in national political imaginations. Lack of debates in parliament over productivity. Just as military strength or natural resources define sovereignty in the past, today a nation's clout hinges on the efficiency and ingenuity of its workforce. Countries that can produce more value with the same resources invariably accumulate wealth, advance technologically, and wield greater influence. Nations are competing on who can compound growth faster through productivity gain. Those that succeed enjoy rising incomes, fiscal strength, and the means to shape global rules. Those that lag become dependent, stuck as markets for other goods and providers of cheap labor or raw materials. Over 30 years, a 3% versus 1% productivity growth difference is the gulf between a middle income and a high-income nation. South Korea is a case in point. In the 1960s, its productivity and income were lower than Indonesia's, but relentless compounding of 7% plus productivity growth for decades vaulted Korea into the high-income club, while Indonesia remained middle income. Each percentage point of productivity growth we fail to achieve is a massive mismultiplier for the future. Several of Indonesia's enduring constraints are structural in nature, and they are the derivatives of our demographic and geographic endowment. Like a large and dispersed populations coupled with an archipelagic geography introduces inherent complexity in service delivery, infrastructure development, and market integrations. The consequence of these structural burdens is clear. Business as usual growth will not suffice. Education access has improved, but the skills-job mismatch remains severe. Employers cite lack of practical skills, critical thinking, and technical expertise. Vocational training is rare, 1% of labor force trained versus 10% of that in Vietnam. High logistic costs, 20% plus of GDP, erode efficiency versus that of 13 to 15% in our neighbors. And many firms, especially SMEs, underinvest in modern tools and systems. 97% of workforce is in MSMEs, most of them informal and small scale. Informal firms lack access to capital, markets, training, and legal protections. Time lost on permits, customs, and red tape reduces business efficiency. Corruption distorts resource allocations and slows down executions. Turning Indonesia into a productivity powerhouse requires nothing less than a national reprogramming. We need to shift the mindset from top to bottom in government, businesses, and society so that efficiency and innovations become part of our DNA. This is both a policy challenge and a cultural one. On the policy side, it means coordinated agenda that cut across sectors and ministries, aligning everyone toward a common goal of raising productivity. On the cultural side, it means changing attitudes, instilling pride in working smarter, not just harder, valuing expertise and experimentation, shading the acceptance of inefficiency as normal. Education must forge adaptable problem solvers. Governance must reward outcomes, not paperwork. Industry must graduate from a sea of micro shops to a fleet of technical potent, medium, and large firms that drive economies of scale. Culture must treat every idle moment as a forfeited future. Together, these levers form a flywheel. Push anyone in isolations and the wheel wobbles, but force them forward in concert and Indonesia will generate the compounding momentum that separates middle-income aspirations from high-income reality. Injecting productivity as the missing multiplier into the core of the nation's fabric requires a conversion from plans into action and action into national habit. Productivity will not rise through fragmented programs or isolated success stories. It must be driven by a unified system that aligns targets, compels delivery, rewards progress, and embeds purpose. Indonesia sets a single audacious North Star: double labor productivity within 10 years and lift total factor productivity by at least one-half. The target is simple, measurable, and terrifying enough to concentrate every ministry and marketplace mind. This final section introduces 4 actions: moonshot, mandate, missions, and march that are designed to hardwire productivity into the nation's rhythm. Together, they form a single architecture to move Indonesia from policy to performance and from movement to momentum. The 2020s will determine whether Indonesia rises to become a prosperous, advanced economy or remains stuck in the middle. Our demographic dividend is peaking, global supply chains are shifting, and technology is redrawing the map of competitiveness. If we fail to act now, we risk being locked out of the high productivity future. The good news: Indonesia has the fundamentals, the political will, and a generation ready for change. What we lack is not capability, but coordination, urgency, and a national compass centered on productivity. This decade is the launch pad. With bold moves, we can unlock growth and transform our trajectory by 2045. The task is simple but monumental. Make productivity the benchmark for every policy, every budget, every business decision, and every individual. Ask one question: does this make us more productive? If yes, accelerate. If not, reallocate. This is not just an economic reform, it is a national awakening. Our true wealth lies not in our resources, but in our ability to turn time, talent, and tools into outcomes that matter. Let history record that Indonesia chose not to drift, but to run forward faster, together, and for productive Indonesia. This video is part of IBC Navigator, a product of IBC Institute's publications. Please read and download below.